The Liberal Party and their corporate friends in the media want you to think that the Conservatives are having some sort of an issue with Pierre Poilievre. I don't believe any of it to be true. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. Many Canadians will be aware that the Liberal government tried to drop a budget this week and that it is just a disaster. Of course, everybody predicted it would be a disaster. No one understood the degree to the disaster that it is and how it's not being received warmly by even people in industry and even people that are traditionally and classically on the Liberal side, no matter what. Of course, they must understand that the implications of this budget is horrible. In this time, however, what we have the mainstream media discussing is things like this. Of course, that is the problem, isn't it? The corporate media is desperate to push a narrative onto you and distract you from the reality of your life, distract you from the facts, the situation on the ground. Mark Carney, who is making references to how he's not going to make a pipeline. He thinks that he'll be able to offset the revenue generated by a pipeline with a data center. Now, I don't agree with him at all, and I will cover that in a different video. I just wanted to point out the very obvious thing to me is this. The way they timed all of this indicates a strategy, a plan. They saw that Pierre Poilievre lost his riding. They started talking about how Conservatives were not happy with Pierre Poilievre back in, after the election in April, May. And I've listened all the time and we've heard them say it. So that kind of gives it away, their strategy. That gives away the plan that they had intended. What they want you to do is to be running around focused on anything other than them. That indicates to me that they have something to hide and that they're very concerned about the progress and the impact that Pierre Poilievre has had on the Canadian society and the culture at large. They don't seem to understand on the left that we don't do idol worship in the center or on the right. We don't sit down and say, oh, because our leader said so, that's the way we're going to be. That's left to the people on the left. That's for people who don't think their way through anything. They just vote blindly no matter what. So they feel that if they kind of rattle the cages of the Conservatives, somehow they're going to swing a lot of votes. I don't think that fella from Nova Scotia is a strong indication of what's going on. I want to look at what was happening in April of this year. The Poilievre rallies were massive. They were filled with young people and old alike. The Carney rallies were being held in bars filled with people who all had, let's just call it gray hair. There was very little comparison between the two. The Conservatives added 20 seats. That's an incredible amount of gain for the situation. What you and I want to hear is that the mainstream media timed all of this. They prepared all of this to go along with the budget, to overshadow the budget. And now they're just pushing a narrative because the corporations that own all of these media companies are in cahoots with the Liberal government. They side with the Liberal government. And so they tell the people that work for them what to say. You see? So then we have to ask ourselves, why is the Liberal government and every media corporation in Canada working together to try to distract everyone away from this horrible budget? From this budget that is going to improve nobody's life, cause a lot of harm for millions of people. For example, they're removing the luxury tax on jets and on boats, like on yachts, but they're leaving it on pickup trucks and cars over a certain dollar value. That's a really, really weird thing to think about when the amount of people that drive those kind of cars is kind of large. especially in northern parts of this country. And the idea that it would be some sort of a luxury and not a necessity indicates just how out of touch the Liberal government is with anybody outside of the downtown core of any major city. So they released this horrible budget. And then because they were timing all of this the way that they wanted to, and they have been trying to lay the groundwork since May of how people don't really want to support Pierre Poilievre, despite everything pointing to the contrary. Then they kind of barrage and bombard you. I mean, it's lucky for us that most people don't listen to the mainstream media who are actually worried about Canada. The mainstream media's trust has been eroded to the point where people look at it and think, well, that's just a joke. There's nothing in there there's no truth to what's being said in those words. And of course, they have only themselves to blame for that. They're the ones that are decided to manipulate Canadians and take advantage of Canadians and erode the trust of these very corporations that are now trying to convince you that it's not that the Liberal government is bad for governance. It's not that Mark Carney's policies are going to be another disaster just like he did in England. No. Somehow it has to do with the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre. I don't think that Pierre Poilievre has much trouble. I don't if he doesn't survive his leadership. I will be surprised. His leadership review, I'll be very surprised. And further, if he doesn't survive the leadership review, the Conservative Party will crumble because people are listening to Pierre Poilievre. It's not like people are listening to the other individuals, maybe in their own riding, but not nationally, which of course only comes back to why they are desperate to bring Pierre Poilievre out of the picture, because they know that if you remove Pierre Poilievre, there's nobody that's charismatic and at the fore to come and step into his shoes quickly. It will take it'll take years to get to the point where he's at now, because he doesn't have the assistance of the mainstream media like the Liberal government does. He doesn't have corporations sitting in his back pocket desperately saying one message over and over again, on top of allowing laws to be permitted that will stop anybody broadcasting in Quebec, in Canada, that the Liberal government deems to be a threat to their control on power. I don't think that there's much of a concern. I believe that what we need to see is the Liberals are scared of Pierre Poilievre. I think that we need to understand that the left wing is terrified because they know that they have they got nothing left to push. They're already telling you it's got to be austerity. They're already telling young people to never think about owning a house. They're already telling you that if you want to own a nice car, you got to pay a luxury tax. Their food prices are through the roof. All of this stuff cannot be hidden anymore. There's no more smoke and mirrors to hide. So, of course, they're going to revert to the same thing they always do. They just try to distract, deflect, and deflect. Don't let the mainstream media deflect. I know it's hard because the way that the Liberal government crafted those pieces of legislation, these are the only people that are permitted to go out over the airwaves. You have to stand firm, and you have to remember that Pierre Poilievre was pulling people in by the massive amounts, biggest rallies in Canadian history. And the young people are listening to Pierre Poilievre because the young people want a future. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. Just stand firm in your convictions and understand that it might take a minute, but we have to overcome all of these individuals that want to bring our country low, all of these individuals that want to get more rich than they need to be or that they deserve to be at the expense of you and I. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.